We've got Jim online.
I just unmuted at somebody's request.
Well, good for you. We just want to make sure we can hear you. And then Council Member Dave Albert is also online.
Thank you. 31. It was on Sunday. Yeah, we went
Okay.
to St. George and had.
Well, we're going to call this meeting to order.
Thank you.
Our first item of business is our Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
Let's see, who can I pick on today?
I would love to say it.
You want to say
I
it?
would love to.
Okay, why don't you do it, Amy?
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear us? Jim, can you hear us?
We'll take that as yes. Please join with
I'm
us.
not
for
hearing
reading.
them.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi.
Yeah, check that. Jim, I'm just going to check. Can you hear us now? I don't think they're hearing. Dave, can you hear us now?
Yes, I hear you fine.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure they're hearing us. All right. Yeah, let's see if we can work with Jim on the side and get him on. Okay, our next item of business is public comment. Do we have anybody online for public comment? Not right now. Do we have anybody in room for public comment? Welcome. You know the drill. State your name, state who you are, and you've got 3 minutes.
My name is Ken Bullock. I provided for you a handout that looks like this that I'll address today. First, I would like to thank Chair Stringham for meeting with me a couple of weeks ago.
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. And I just heard you, so that's good.
Oh, good.
All
Well,
right.
there we go. I'm glad you can hear us.
That doesn't count against my time.
Yes, that does not count against your time.
I'm trying
Will
to
you
get
please reset his time? Thank you.
I'm trying to get a pace for what 3 minutes is and what I can share. I wanted to thank you for meeting with me. I thought it was, I found it to be very productive. And I appreciated your willingness to not only meet, but share where you think the council and you are going, what you're trying to accomplish. So I just wanted the other council members to know that. I also would like to thank Miss Bridget Romano. I think that's how you say it. She and I was unaware of the time change last week, or 2 weeks ago, and I felt like a very productive conversation. She shared some perspectives that I didn't necessarily agree with, but I think are valid points to consider. And in so doing, led to what I want to share with you today, which is about if technicalities are good for me in the process, in terms, when I say good for me, it's good for the prosecutors, that there's technical issues that you have to comply with. Then I think it's fair play that I get to expect the same technicalities that I feel like prosecutors should have to comply with. And which leads me to this piece of paper. This is according to Mr. Jeremy Walker, who was interviewed by who I consider a very incompetent detective you have on your force. I know you have an overwhelming number of prosecutors that do things the right way. I don't know how many investigators you have, but I assume most of them work to do a really good job. I can tell you without any equivocation on my part that Mr. Garicachia was in the ballpark of Barney Fife when he was going about his investigation. So in the testimony that Mr. Walker gave to Mr. Garicachia, he states he has 38 boxes of files and information over in a corner that contains documents, organizing documents, minutes, etc. So I've gone through each of the interviews that Mr. Garricachi and the prosecutors and their team have gone through, and pulled out what I have for you, and I'd like to go through it real quickly. There's a letter from the internal, let me back up real quickly. Was charged with 7 felonies. 4 of them were related to a private trust that was created by myself and a bond pool. And so the first item here is a letter that was contained in this box that is from the Internal Revenue Service. And if you read real quickly here, it says, we have determined you are exempt from federal income tax under Section 501C, 501A of the Internal Revenue Service.
That is 3 minutes right there. That's not very much time, I know.
That's fine. Real quickly then, I would ask you to look at this because it will show you truly how incompetent this investigation was. I would also like to ask if I could have Mr. Gill come so we could have a discussion on policies. My case is done and closed, but he invited me to come to a public forum where we could discuss this. And he's ignored me at the legislature. He has ignored me when I've come here. So I'm asking you, as the chair and the council, to formally invite him so we could come and talk about policies as it relates to prosecutorial issues. I'd like to thank you for that.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for being gracious with your time.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Yep. Okay, do we have other public comment in here right now? One person online? And who is that? Who is it? Oscar? Oscar, you have 3 minutes. You're welcome to state your name and where you're from.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Hello. My name is Oscar Avizu, and I've been a resident of Salt Lake City for over 25 years. During those years, I've mainly lived in the downtown area, and I've seen it grow and evolve. And there's things I've imagined and hoped for, and the Rio Grande plan is definitely on the top of the list. Salt Lake City needs something like this. As we all know, this plan would bury and box the train tracks all along 500 West in the downtown area. This would be a game changer for Salt Lake City. Just looking at the plan, you can see the benefits it would have for the downtown Salt Lake City area and the Wasatch Valley, including an actual east and west connection and potential for high-speed rail in the future. This would open a tremendous size of land for housing, parks, retail, and businesses all along 500 West from 300 North to 900 South, basically from the Guadalupe and Hardware District through the revitalization zone and the Rio Grande District that they want to create and down to the Granary and Post District. With that being said, I ask you to please consider the Rio Grande plan and funding for an economic impact study. And at the moment, there's a proposal from Utah State University Economics and Finance Department to create one for the Rio Grande plan for just $13,600. It would be a drop in the bucket out of the transportation funds. And again, I love the city, and we know it has so much potential. And this plan would be such a springboard to something amazing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, any additional public comment? Any in room? Okay, we'll close public comment. We'll move on to the report of elected officials. We'll go to our council members. Do you have any council members that wish to speak at this time? Okay, I do have one thing. Clark Planetarium had their ribbon cutting this last week. In fact, it was a pretty cool day. I actually had the opportunity earlier that day to go and watch my son at his work as a +1, and we got to see a test fire of a rocket with Northrop Grumman in the morning, which was really exciting and kind of a neat experience to be able to do that. And then to go from that to work and then to the Clark Planetarium that night to be able to open up and do the ribbon cutting for the new classrooms there and see kind of full circle my son, who grew up with Clark Planetarium and all the STEM and STEAM programs, and how much of an influence it's made on his life and the choices he's made. And now that he's a material science engineer and works for Northrop and does work with hazard analysis and things like that, what it's done in in his tie back into the whole space exploration. It was kind of a full circle moment for me to be able to be there to support Clark Planetarium and to be able to be part of that and to meet an astronaut. That was pretty awesome. So it was a fun night, and it was a cool experience. So anyway, so kudos to them, and they gave us a space alien, which I'm going to send them pictures now, abiding on our. We have a tree in the council office, and he's now sitting on top of the tree. So he now has a permanent place in the office. So until he deflates, but it's pretty awesome. All right. Any other council members with things just that they want to bring up? Okay, Mayor.
Great. Well, I actually have a fairly lengthy report, so I'll be as brief as possible. But I want to compliment our Office of Regional Development. They've been involved as only one of 6 counties in the nation in a process with the National Association of Counties. And the focus is to go through the process of identifying and developing affordable housing on publicly owned lands. So we've contributed to that as an effort to lean into more housing stock and advancing the opportunities in the space. And I also want to touch on the incredible work they're doing right now with evictions. And sadly, last month it was the second highest number of eviction filings in Salt Lake County. We had 478. So I think as we go into next year, this is an area for us all to pay attention to and regroup around. And I would ask Catherine Cantor and Dina Blaze and their team to work with us a little more closely to see what tools we have. We have many, but mediations is one of them, and we're very involved in that. And that facilitation has been really critical. We had 804 facilitations between landlords and tenants. So I just think this is an area for us to continue to pay attention to. Anytime we lose someone from housing is one more family or individual that is either needing to couch surf or find another place. And in a tight market, the last thing we want is them to have to support them on the streets, and even worse, the challenges that brings about, especially when families are involved. So as I saw that report, there's good news that they're so active in this space. The bad news is this is a real challenge. So I'm going to move this to front burner, and we'll come back with more information in the first quarter of next year on that. On the positive side, we have an ongoing amazing program over the holidays, our Youth Services Angel Tree program. So go grab a little gift off the tree to give to one of our families, one of our children rather, who are sadly in situations where they're under the custody short-term of our youth services program. And these donated items go directly to those at-risk youth. And again, happy but also sad that kids are in this position, but we're happy that we can support them over the holidays. I'll share that last year, my family and I took dinner to this program, and it was incredibly meaningful to spend some time with these kids. On the next program update, our hazard mitigation plan, we're right in the heart of it, and our survey just closed on November 22nd. We received 550 responses. Those responses will help us compile and draft the plan that we will use for the next year. And heaven forbid we go through another major emergency, but we want our hazard mitigation folks to be ready, prepared for small, for large. And just a little bit of a reflection that I think you'll find interesting. I just came back from a conference in Boston with NACO executives, and we gather those of us who actually are in a role to run elements of government, like larger governments. So one of my colleagues, Lena Hildego, I believe that's her last name. She shared that in not Harris County, Texas, I'm sorry. It's San Antonio, and I'll think of the county in a minute. But in any event, they have an incredible amount of almost, not daily, but every few days emergencies due to their industry. And it's just interesting to see, of course, we have a very close relationship with Rio Tinto, and the impacts of mining over the years has led to some hazardous materials, including the day of the earthquake. We had a leak that came out of one of their buildings, and it got really scary for a while. And luckily, a drone went in, determined that whatever was leaking that day was not hazardous. But we were literally in a position to evacuate sections. I mean, I think it was thousands of people that day. Luckily, we were able to identify. And it was due to this type of planning that we do, where we didn't have to evacuate. And it's the heart of COVID. It was very tricky. So hats off to the team working through our hazardous mitigation plans. Switching to Parks and Rec, the needs assessment survey has opened and will be opened until the 20th of December. And the responses that we get from this outreach will really help form the master plan. And that helps form, I'm sure you all are getting your doors knocked on as it relates to the fact that we just passed our ZAP tax. And all of our cities want more major investment in Parks and Rec, and we have to be strategic around that plan. So to let you guys off the hook, there's a very specific process. There's investment made by Parks and Rec. We go through that process. We then will take the results of the master plan and provide that information to our ZAP committee. And it's not just ZAP that's impacted through this process on the master plan, but that is one of the major, I think, necessary investments to make good policy decisions around where the need is greatest, given we always have limited resources. So you can find the link to the survey at the top of the Parks and Rec webpage, and thanks to the Parks and Rec team for that. And then some fun holiday events. Of course, Wheeler Farms got a lot going on. The market will be open this weekend, and great vendors there, so go shop. There's also Festive Fridays at Wheeler running through December 20th with wagon rides and lights and Santa Claus and all sorts of fun things. And then Animal Services Giving Tuesday is December 3rd from 6 to 8:30. And they've done a great job there of just really leaning into community support, which is great. And that'll be a fun event. And it looks like that particular event, there'll be bingo, food, all sorts of fun things. So next week. And then thank you, council member or council chair, for the mention on the learning space opening at Clark. That was, sorry I was out of town to miss that, because that was really exciting to see that done. I mean, obviously, science exploration is so much a part of what our planetarium does, but I really appreciate that it's yet another free place for families, right? So there are costs to, of course, movies and the IMAX and some of the star shows, but great way to take kids, grandkids, family to spend a day, or without kids. It's always dynamic and great there. And I think, I know, Council Chair, you're a member of the board. Are there any other council members, or you are?
I'm the
Yeah,
representative.
excellent. Thank you for that service. That's a fun one, but it's an important one to our county. And then I want to just share that yesterday I joined the Miller's Thanksgiving season of service, which was hundreds of meals provided to people experiencing homelessness, and many people who actually are not stably housed but have some housing. A lot of families came through, which always heartbreaking. And as we look at next year's priorities, I think really leaning in even more to the challenge of family homelessness, it's just incredibly important. I mean, these kids go to school, there are a lot of support, but like the idea of them just being missed on the street is devastating, and it's an issue that's growing. We've generally seen some stabilization from the flow of people in from Venezuela. That had put a lot of pressure on the system. So we're glad things aren't as exigent as they once were, but we continue to have great need in our community around that. Also last night, I had a chance to join our Lights On at the Eccles, which is a kickoff of the celebration, and really cool art installation. We have a new one every year. And this one I think could be permanent. Go check it out if we want to go there, Aaron. So let's go talk to Matt and see. I don't know the rules, but it's one that really fits into the space. I don't know how to describe it. It's like crystal-like looking structures that light up and change colors. And I think given the kind of modernist theme there, looks kind of cool with the architecture. So it really is worth strolling by and checking out. Superman effect. Yes. Yes. Yeah, we could do movie premieres there. No, it is. It's like, wow. Yes, that's a good way of putting it. And then also yesterday, I was invited and enjoyed joining members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and another philanthropist in the community and City Creek in launching the giving machines. So, and they used to be in the Joseph Smith Memorial Building, and I appreciate that the City Creek leadership team really wanted them moved so they could be more accessible, even given the demand on shopping. And the machines are set up so you can buy a goat for someone overseas for one of the charity programs that provides that support to families living in challenging conditions throughout underdeveloped areas of the world. Our own criminal justice service youth program was one of the programs. So I donated to that, and it's a great little vending machine program that, and I want to hats off to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for their, they write off all of the transaction fees. So it's a multi-$100,000 donation that they're putting in so that every dollar actually goes to the actual charity. So another great one in addition to our angel tree. And boy, that's it. That's a lot, I know. And look forward to the deliberations today. And thank you for your service. And have a great Thanksgiving, everyone.
All right. Other elected officials. Do we have anybody else that wishes to speak? Come on up.
Just wanted to introduce.
Come up here.
Want to do that?
Yep.
Do that. It's official.
We want to be able to hear you online, and so if you'll both take a seat.
Just want to officially introduce Treasurer-elect Sheila Srivastava. She'll be in our office periodically through the next month, especially the next few days as we beg people to come pay their taxes before the deadline on Monday. So I just thought I should introduce her to the council.
I'll be coming to see you to pay some taxes. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I just want to publicly thank Wayne because he's been incredibly gracious inviting me into the office. And I know it's not something required, but he's been doing something that shows me how much pride he has in the legacy that he leaves, and that the staff in there are spectacular. And I can't wait to work with everybody there and also collaborate with you all at whenever those times are necessary. So thank you, Wayne.
And I want to thank Wayne for the online option so I don't have to come into the office.
Congratulations.
Sometimes it's fun to see that big crowd of people, so.
Congratulations. Congratulations. We look forward to working with you.
Yes. All right. Any other elected officials wish to speak? Okay. We'll move on to our work session. We're going to go to a proposed hire report, incentive plans 3,000 and under, and our weekly reclassification report. Joach Nguyen, our council budget and policy analyst, will be presenting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This week we have 25 positions listed. We don't have any incentive planned. We do have one reclassification from Criminal Justice Services. They reclassify a vacant treatment specialist to a program manager, one grade higher. And any increases can be absorbed by the ongoing under expense because some new hires come in with salaries and benefits less than the existing vacant positions budget. If the council doesn't have any question on that, that's all I have to report today.
Okay. Any questions from council? All right. We'll move on to 4.2, Salt Lake Valley Law Enforcement Service Area, SLVLESA, otherwise known as. And request to pursue a 12.87% tax increase to fund police services. The presenters are Rachel Anderson, SLVLESA District Administrator and Legal Counsel, and Richard Moon, SLVLESA Treasurer. Welcome.
Hi, thank you all for having me. Again, Rachel Anderson. I'm the District Administrator and Legal Counsel for SLVLESA. You will probably recognize me from having visited recently for Unified Fire Service Area as well, so making the rounds this year. Thanks for having me. And I'm going to start by giving the background of how we got here. Last year, we were here as well with a request for a tax increase, 7% last year. The goal last year was to allow the district to reach the statutory maximum tax rate because we were really close to it. Finances, like many agencies and organizations are experiencing, finances have been tough. Inflation has hit all of us. Personnel costs are high. And when I stepped into this role as administrator a year ago, I walked into an organization that was already kind of, not as stable as we wanted it to be in terms of our finances. Seeing our Councilwoman Theodore here, who's on our board, nodding in agreement. So that was one step that we took last year. Was we came and said, look, let's at least get to our max. It's hard to look at other funding sources if you haven't already taken advantage of everything that you have available to you. And so that was approved last year. When June came around and we got our certified tax rate, Rick and I were surprised to see that because property tax values property values were higher than we anticipated, it resulted in our tax rate being lower. As I'm sure you guys are all very well aware, the way that the property taxes work in the state, you don't ask for a percentage, you ask for a dollar amount, and then they determine what the tax rate's going to be in order to get you that dollar amount. Because values of properties went high, it took a smaller percentage to get us to the dollar amount that we asked for. So we were presented with a situation that we weren't expecting, which is, wow, we didn't actually hit our tax cap like we were, intending. And I felt it was incumbent upon me to at least bring that to the board, the option to do it again. And the board of SLVLESA voted to proceed, at least with the process of doing truth in taxation. And so that's why we're here again. Yet again, we have done some estimates to try to, look into our crystal ball and guess what would that number be to get us to the tax cap. And that's where we get this 12.87%, which is roughly how much money again is that going to?
$3.276 million.
Additional $1 million. As you're aware, we went through a lot of changes last year with the HB 374, which required the Salt Lake County Sheriff to lead the Unified Police Department. That all was officially done as of July 1st of this year. The UPD interlocal agreement had been renegotiated. Salt Lake County is no longer part of the UPD. The member cities all voted to stay with UPD. And as a result, SLVLESA now has basically two members that we pay our bills to. We pay Salt Lake County Sheriff and we pay UPD to provide law enforcement services within our service district. With such a big change, things are going to be uncertain, and we've actually been weathering them and managing them, I think, really well. From what I hear from both organizations, they come and report to us every month. Things are going as smoothly as one can hope. We recognize that there are still a lot of issues to work out with the organizations and how things are going to go in the long run. And I'm confident that we will get to those resolutions. But in the meantime, we need to keep things, running smoothly now, and we can continue to have those conversations. So that's why I would ask for an approval now, so that we can continue to do the work that we need to do. That leads me to another point, which you might recall from last year. A special nuance in the law requires our members to vote to approve yes or no on the truth in taxation increase for law enforcement. There's not a similar requirement for fire. So when fire came and presented to you, that was just a report. This one, however, requires a vote. So we've been going out and visiting the communities, and there's two options for this to go forward. One would be if if we get unanimous approval from the cities, then this council only needs a majority vote. Alternatively, if we get any no votes from the cities, so then would need at least a majority of the cities, then this council would need to have a 2/3 vote. Last year, we did have one no vote, which was the Metro Township at that time of Copperton, and so we were able to get a 2/3 vote here, and it proceeded. this year, we had originally had this meeting scheduled for later, but we were asked to move it up. So we actually don't have all our votes yet. We're still waiting to hear from Copperton and Magna. Magna's meeting tonight. And Copperton they were supposed to have it on their agenda last week, and there was a mistake on their agenda. It didn't get put on. But if I'm being completely frank, I'm thinking that Copperton's probably going to go the same way they went last year, because they have that mindset about taxes in that community that they typically vote no. So with that, I would expect that we probably need a 2/3 vote here to proceed. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to hand it over to Rick, and he's going to go over some of the financial discussion a bit more, and we can open it up to questions.
So a district of SLVLESA should be able to cover the fees within a district, and that's part of this tax increases so that we can cover our fees. So right now, what I wanted to come forth is right now, the fees for UPD, or the fees for SLVLESA in whole right now are $32 million, just under $32 million. Of that, $782,000 is SLVLESA's, like, to run the day-to-day, to pay for the TRAN interest, or the tax revenue anticipation note interest. 4.4 million of that goes to the sheriff's office to cover what the sheriff, the law enforcement, the sheriff does in unincorporated and also in the canyons. And then 26,785,000 of that goes to Unified Police Department. So that comes to just under $32 million. Right now, without a tax increase, the revenues that SLVLESA would bring in would be 26,770,000, or just under that. So as you can see, there's a huge difference between the expenditures being paid and the revenues that we can bring in. So if we get this tax increase, which again is $3.276 million, that will put us just over $30 million. So even then, we're still going to be short of paying the total. We're going to have to dip into fund balance going forward. And then at that point, we're going to have to figure out, strategically what's the best step going forward to try to get that to balance. Because right now we only have $5 million in our fund balance.
So you can't keep dipping into the fund balance, which is why I'm concerned. I'll be honest, I have a lot of concerns about this right now, for many reasons. So I have a lot of questions for you.
Alrighty. So what this tax increase is it for average SLVLESA resident, they're a value of $453,000. It's an increase of $6,534 a year, or $545 a month. For a business, it's $1,041.90 a year, for a yearly increase of $118.79 or $990 a month. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
Let's get into questions.
Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
So I was a little bit confused when you were talking about how you're trying to hit a certain rate.
They're hitting the maximum.
Well, right, but shouldn't we be looking, you're still getting the same dollar amount, so it really shouldn't matter if somebody's property taxes went higher and your rate went lower, because you're still getting that same amount. And generally, like, when people are looking at how to, if they need to raise taxes or whatever, they're looking at a dollar amount and what the needs are, instead of like trying a goal hitting a certain tax rate, which is really, to me, doesn't seem like it's as big of that seems like it's irrelevant. So help me understand that a little bit better.
So our needs, we do have a dollar amount need, and it's greater than we are able to capture really from taxes. So that's why we're just trying to guess how much can we go to get that tax cap, because we know we can't go beyond it, but our needs would actually be greater than that. And we are asking for a dollar amount. And like I said, when we did that last year, we guessed what would the dollar amount be that we could feasibly ask for that wouldn't go above that maximum rate. And because the values were higher, that rate ended up coming in lower. So we still have some wiggle room to ask for more dollars. Okay. And that would then increase the tax rate again.
So are you like I know the water districts, like, they can only take so much at a time. Like they can't wait 5 years like we could and then do a tax increase to try to make up inflation and everything else. They have to do little bits as they go because they've got a max. Is that how you guys are as well?
Yeah, we have every type of district has a different tax cap, and so they're set at different rates. We're in with public safety, so law enforcement and fire has the same cap. Okay. And so that's what we're kind of working under. Okay. Ultimately, Let me finish this and then I'll,
No,
yeah.
just let Mark.
Okay.
Let me know.
Yeah. Ultimately, if and when we no longer, can get any more revenue from our taxes, a big part of the conversation has been the cities that chose to stay with UPD would need to come in and fill the gaps with their income. And that's very likely where this is going. However, like I said, from the district standpoint, we're just saying, let's maximize what we can get, and then it'll roll over into those other options.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure you guys have explained that before.
No,
and
it's-
it's like I'm trying to remember whose rules or what on these.
It's totally,
districts, so
it's
thanks
totally
for
complicated, and I'm living this every day, and you guys hear from us once in a while, so I get it. Yeah.
Okay. Go to Sheldon and then Ann.
Yeah, so you answered actually one part of my question, so I won't ask that, which is what would you do if?
Yeah.
The next part is what portion of that total budget is coming from the centrally assessed?
So, actually, Chris Stavros' team went through that last year. I don't know the new number this year. I think last year it was 11, just over, actually it was $8 million. $3 million came from the unincorporated Salt Lake County. So it was just over 8 million from centrally assessed.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Can I make a comment about centrally assessed real quick? Because I know that's a hot topic of conversation a lot. I just wanted to give my perspective that centrally assessed, and I've actually talked with Jim about this as well, so I don't know if he wants to chime in and share his thoughts, but centrally assessed is not fundamentally different than any other real property area. It's just that it's calculated in a different way. We put mines, airlines, utilities, and railroads because they're weird and they're complicated. They're just valued in a different office. It's a centrally assessed office. They still pay the same tax rate as any other property. They're just paying their property taxes. The area that we're talking about with the Rio Tinto land, I looked at a couple of their tax statements, and they are paying into several districts. There's us, there's UFSA, Magna Mosquito Abatement District, Magna Water District, South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District, Jordan Water Basin Improvement District, something like that. And then also Salt Lake County Libraries. So there's lots of entities that have that in their service area. And the way I like to look at it is it's like a rich neighborhood. It's the centrally assessed. That's just the calculation method. It's not necessarily any different. And I don't feel like we should necessarily look at it differently than other areas. We and all of those districts are able to take advantage of a rich neighborhood to help pay for our districts. And that's what's going on there.
I think the difference is, though, it resides in unincorporated Salt Lake County and is unincorporated Salt Lake County funds. That's the difference.
Okay.
We understand that that's the case when you're part of a service district, but we want to make sure it's clear that if we were not part of that service district, you would have zero attachment to that or access to it.
Sure.
Now, I don't think people understand that on that board. I'll be very blunt about that. And it's been a long time coming that we've had this discussion for a long time. I've worked with them. I've worked with all of those mayors for a long time. They did not believe it belonged to Salt Lake County. They believe it belonged to them until they finally came to the conclusion, and maybe reluctantly, that it doesn't exactly belong to them, but they think it should. So I'm going to be very blunt about that. It is unincorporated Salt Lake County funds. We allow it to be used because we are friendly and work together and partners with everybody in these special service districts for the betterment of everybody who's part of those. But I have been hit and talked to and dumped on by the same groups you're talking about right now about the centrally assessed money that belongs to Salt Lake County, that we're not being fair with them about letting them use our money for their purposes. So I just want to make that clear. I understand what you're saying.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Because I'm not sure I fully understand what you're saying. When you're saying you're letting us use and it's your money, like if we didn't assess that money, or if Salt Lake County were to somehow withdraw from the district,
Sure.
that money goes away. It's not like assessed anymore.
No, we have the ability to assess.
Yeah, you would do a separate assessment.
Sure.
Because it's in your area.
In our area.
But I'm just saying, like, if you were to withdraw from the district, that part would just it wouldn't continue to be just
That's my point.
redirected.
Yes.
It would have to be, you'd then have to do your own
We would
assessment.
do our
Yeah.
own assessment,
Okay.
we do that type of thing.
Yeah.
There just seems to be the confusion that if we went away, they could keep that money. That was a confusion for a period of time, just be aware.
Okay. I've not heard that from anyone I've spoken to.
When I first got on the
okay.
board, that was definitely a confusion.
yeah,
That
that's
has
not-
been cleared up since then.
Yeah, I definitely do not believe that that's the case. So if
I know
yeah,
you
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
I think you guys need to understand that in the past there was some confusion
Okay.
about what this belongs to, who it belongs to, and who should be able to get the chance to use it.
Yeah.
And because we were part of these boards, this was not clear to people on that board that these things should be credited towards some of the unincorporated county stuff, right? And so this is something that has been a problem all the way along, is helping people understand what is centrally assessed, that it is centrally assessed in unincorporated Salt Lake County. Because we are part of a service district, it gets to be used by all. That's how it works in a service district, and we understand that, and we're happy to do that. But what we oftentimes get is not that, if that makes sense. So it's been a struggle, I think, for a lot of us to communicate that. And we come and say, you know what, we're going to need a little bit more because A, we've been booted out by the legislature, and we're in this situation. Thankfully, we were able to work that out. But it wasn't pretty for a little while, and I was hearing all sorts of nasty things about us behind there, asking for things that they said was not our money. And I find it a little bit laughable when they said it wasn't our money, because it really is. So I understand what we're talking about here, but I just want to make that clear, because I will tell you it hasn't been clear with some people, and I'm being really blunt about that right now. So,
Okay. I hear you.
Anyway, having said that, I do have a couple questions. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ann first. Yep, sorry, Ann. Go ahead.
Is this shortfall a direct result of the separation of UPD and the sheriff's office?
No. I mean, so over the past 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, so we've had a few entities that have left SLVLESA. Back in 2018, it was actually before I went on SLVLESA. I was on as asked to be the treasurer of SLVLESA. And so that, I don't know exactly the implications from that, but there was, Mill Creek, Riverton, and Harriman all left SLVLESA back in 2018, I want to say, which, there was issues that came from that. And then with the wage wars that happened in 2020, that's also been another reason why, that's pushed us to that cap. So.
Okay, so you were having issues before the
Prior,
separation.
yes.
The other question I have is, what percentage of the municipalities have you met with, and what are their leaders so far?
We have.
Are you on, Ann?
I thought so.
Oh, no, you weren't. I wasn't hearing you.
Yeah, she asked what percentage of the municipalities we've met with and what have their votes been. We have met with all of them. We have yes votes from everyone except for Copperton and Magna. Magna is voting tonight. We met with them, but they didn't have it on to vote the night that we met. So they're meeting tonight, and I don't know which direction it's going to go. And then Copperton we met with, and they also didn't vote the night we presented, and they were supposed to put it on their agenda for last week, and there was a mistake and it didn't get on the agenda. So I'm kind of up in the air about what's going on with Copperton.
But assuming that you've got one yes and one no, you've got the percentage you need to proceed.
Yeah, even if they both vote no at this point, we've got enough
the
from the cities. Like I said, I suspect that we won't have a unanimous vote, which is why I suspect we'll need 2/3 here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Darren.
Yeah, I just wanted to delve into Councilman Granato's question a little more deeply. So the shortfall existed. I think the question is, though, the members chose UPD, a much more expensive option, notwithstanding the existing shortfall.
That's exactly what I was asking. Thank you.
Yep, go ahead.
My question is maybe for Madam Chair, are we looking for a vote today?
Yeah, we need a vote today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and they will probably need a 2/3 vote, because I've heard rumors that Copperton may not.
Yeah. And as of right now, we don't have a vote at all, and I would say that not voting is a no vote.
at this point,
So,
probably.
yeah, their next time, they next meet the day before our tax hearing. Our tax hearing is December 19th. And that has been noticed through the parcel-specific tax notices that get sent out to everyone. We will also be doing the required newspaper ads, as well as all the public meeting website, public notice website, and our own personal website. We'll have it posted there. If we don't get the votes to proceed with the truth and tax hearing, we've sent out that notice too far and wide to pull that back. We'll still have our meeting that night. It'll just be a budget meeting only at that point if the tax stuff doesn't go forward.
Okay. And then, so I guess my questions are a couple things. Are the cities who are part of UPD, are they looking at an increase at all right now? Are they increasing what they're paying into it? And are they looking at an increase in taxes for the cities currently?
As far as the increase in the UPD, I don't know if they're in their budget process far enough to know what the increase would be. So that's a hard, they'll probably be done in February. You know, I think they have to present in March to their board what their increases will be. So I don't know if there's going to be an increase to them. As far as the cities go for taxes,
I don't know what the status is on their individual cities on what they're doing to raise funds, but should this tax rate not go through, and honestly, anyway, I'm going to be advising them to, when you are sitting in on your UPD board, which, is not my board, and I don't necessarily have anything to do with that they need to start thinking seriously about that budget and how directly it relates to our ability to pay that budget. And, do cuts need to happen? Number one, or number two, what are you doing in your cities to be able to start contributing? Because even if we do this tax increase, it helps us for a year, which I do think is really vital and helpful. And, if we do get to that cap, like that's a year, so.
And that's my concern.
They're going to have to go down that road. And from my understanding, I don't speak for the cities and I don't represent the cities, but from my understanding is that when they chose to stay with UPD, in full understanding that it was probably the more expensive option, they wanted that anyway, that they understood that they would be having to contribute to pay for that. So that's my understanding and what I will tell them they need to go work on.
Right, but that decision's also costing unincorporated county people as well because of that. I live in Kearns, so this is affecting me. I got a 7% increase last year, a little bit over 7%, and now we're going another 12%. For me, you're looking at over $100 in the next 2 years, and that's a killer for me. My property taxes increased heavily between UFSA and UPD. My taxes next year are going to be at least $200 more. And I'm a single mom. That is not easy for me to come up with. And so I'm going to have to put more money aside each month to be able to cover that. My homeowners, because the house has gone up in value, almost doubled. So, being able to come up with this kind of funding is difficult. And you're still not going to cover your shortfall with this, which is why I'm concerned. I'm not seeing a plan where everything is going to get covered, or they're cutting back, or they're looking at a way to fund this. And I don't see the cities coming up with any extra money or covering any costs on their own as well. What I see is a scenario where we're going to be in arrears through SLVLESA from now on, and the easiest place for them to cut is our sheriff's office because they can't make up the difference. So that is my concern right now because it doesn't affect them, but it will affect us. So I want to know if there's a plan to fix that because right now I don't see one. And that's why I'm really having a hard time with this tax increase right now because I don't see a plan to fix that problem. I just see a tax increase every time we can, and we're still not going to get there. Because we've got one board that has to pay the bill, and we don't have a say necessarily in the actual group that we're paying the bill to. So that's my 2 cents worth.
I will definitely pass that along.
Sheldon, go ahead.
I understand.
Can I just follow up with one question? It's just to help me kind of make the separation, and you may not have the 100% answer, but I think you might have an idea. Is it 3 contract cities and the rest are SLVLESA?
Yes.
That are UPD? And that's Mill Creek, Holiday, and
Midvale.
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 Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just needed to understand that.
Yeah.
And Midville tends to take I'm not raising anything, I'm not paying anymore, you guys figure it out. And they've done that quite a number of years in the budgets. Correct?
I'm not sure on the UPD.
Yeah, they
It
have.
used to be on UPD, so yes.
Yes, that is correct. So they haven't paid any more and everybody else is picking up their share. I have a problem with that. I've seen it happen in UPD over and over and over again. So now it's going to be on the back of SLVLESA and it could end up affecting us. And I don't see that getting fixed. So unless SLVLESA figures out a way to make sure that that doesn't come back on us right now, this isn't going to do anything for us. We're just going to keep paying more and more and more. And UPD is going to end up costing us because we don't have a way to fix that right now. So
And
that's
Madam
as
Chair.
good as I can get. Sorry, Mayor, go ahead.
Just to say, I mean, I think that we are having similar conversations as we look at centrally assessed, the evolving nature of county business and our service district involvement, right? And as we said last week when we look at the fire service area, I'm really interested in getting all the parties together to unpack the long-term need. Because the points that you're making, I agree with, and I think are valid. I see this as sort of hopefully a healthy divorce from when we had this broad county unincorporated area and our dual role. And we really want to lean in for future years as a county to our regional role. And by leaning in more directly to our regional role, we can help all cities, regardless of whether or not there are partners in districts or not. And I also really care about the equity issue. I'm actually a little surprised that some of the cities who are not in the fire district or the police district aren't more actively challenging some of the subsidy issue. And there's a history to the Kennecott impacts on our community that is fair to be considered in this conversation. There's also something that we value at Salt Lake County, and we always call it feathering in. We've done that from day one under my administration as we looked at this step down from this broad unincorporated area. Because when it was back in the day where we had this vast amount of area, maybe the relationships weren't as obvious. As we narrow, we see members leave both, as we look at pressures on budgets, and you add the inflationary component for all of us. Our county budget, forget the police and fire, right? We're seeing incredible pressure right now. So for that reason, as I said to the fire chief last week, we want to enter into facilitation with a private partner so that we can be better partners going forward, but also be fair. Like we have double tax, I'm going to say this a different way. A taxpayer has multiple, pennies they're putting into the pot. And we just want it to be fair and be aligned with the service in the right area. And I think there is a legislative fix to this, but I think it has to be done in a way with it where it's not like red alert by one party. And that's why I really think some independent facilitation where we would work with you, we would work with on the other side, maybe the same facilitator for fire, MSD as well. And we really start to say what data is missing. Is everyone providing the data we need? Are we providing data apples to apples so it's understandable by all parties and entities? And can we agree on those terms? And this could be a multi-month, could be multi-year. I personally recognize the pickle that you're in, but it's not sustainable for us to continue as a district member, given our limited unincorporated area. It really isn't sustainable on that side. And as you pointed out, you're going to hit the ceiling pretty quickly. Right. So I don't know that I have great advice today to the council on this, except to say I really am committed to working with you on finding and working through a productive, all parties interested, county's not going to lead it. Like, let's do it fairly. A process related to just unpacking this long-term challenge.
Right.
And can I speak?
Please.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and that I feel like I'm in a similar spot. I mean, I'm all for that, and I think that would be really helpful. And I opened this with saying that there are still a ton of challenges that we have not figured out. We're trying to work on it step by step. And so everything you've said, I understand, and we are not at the end perfect space here. We're trying to get there. So,
And this is, I mean, I'm not on the boards.
yeah,
This is my chance to tell you
absolutely.
what I've seen over the last 4 years that I've been involved. And it has affected all aspects. What we do in this special district affects the other special districts, whether anybody realizes it or not, because it has ripple effects on relationships, on how we interact. I've watched it ripple out all over the place. And so we got to get it figured out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and that is my message back. So thanks for taking it. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys have to be the message bearer, but just know that's my biggest concern. I'm
Right.
not seeing a fix to this.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
all right, I'm willing to take a motion at this point. I think
Madam Chair, I'll motion to
Yep.
approve the request from SLVLESA.
okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote on this. Diaz. Yes.
Aye.
Sorry, did you say my name?
Yes.
Was that, that was
Dave.
me? Aye.
Jim's and
I'm
I.
having a
There you
hard
go.
time hearing the clerk.
Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm going to vote no in respect to my member cities that also voted no, and also in respect to the many good comments by Councilmember Stringham. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Bradshaw.
Aye.
And I have Councilmember Bradley's vote. Councilmember Granado.
Aye.
Councilmember Harrison. Aye. Councilmember Stewart.
No.
Councilmember Theodore.
Aye.
Councilmember Stringham.
No.
It's like
6-3.
4-5. I think it passed.
6.
Is it
6-3. We're 2/3. Yeah.
That's 2/3. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're 2/3.
Yeah. And I assure you, we'll keep working on this issue, and I'm with you. We need to make a fix for sure.
And if you'll please let SLVLESA know, we support the officers and things like that.
Oh,
but
of
this needs
course.
fixed before you start coming back with and saying we just need more money. We need
Yeah.
more money.
Completely.
So SLVLESA is going to have to put some pressure on UPD to figure that out.
That's my plan.
Thank you.
And can I ask one thing? We get a continual narrative about, well, this police is charging more, so we've got to up ours. Could somebody get together when you're facilitating and do something about the round robin of price increases?
Personnel costs.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Our next item of business is 4.3, council consideration and proposed job descriptions and internal policies related to council staff reorganization and any related council direction. 4.3. Amy?
Thank you. I know we're running short on time, so I'll try to make this quick and incorporate the feedback I've heard from Suzanne and Dee on these. So this is bringing back the policy changes that would implement what we did last week when we cut the council office budget to get rid of the 4 FTEs and lower the budgeted amount by $400,000. So there's a policy change. I emailed it all to all of you last Friday. It's redlined with the changes that would be made to just have the language that we need to do this. And then we've also included job descriptions for the aide to the chair position that we're calling council office director and the senior advisor for each of the caucuses. So I know Suzanne and Dee talked about lowering the 6 years to 2 years, which I'm fine with since we're all weighing in on who the final people would be anyway. And then, we're all weighing in on the one and then each caucus weighs in on the other two. So anyway, so I'm going to read, if I can, I'm going to read my motion. And then if there's discussion, I want to give some wiggle room to our legal team and HR because there's going to be potential things, especially where we're creating this new position, that they may need to add in here. So I want to give them some flexibility. So with that caveat, the motion is I move that we approve the 2 new council staff job descriptions in substantially the form that we discussed today, including changing the 6 years to 2. and instruct council staff to work with county staff, including HR, to finalize them as soon as possible. I also move that the council proceed with hiring the council office director position once the job description is finalized and can be posted, and that the council establish a goal of selecting a person for that position no later than December 17th. I also move that the council approve the proposed amendments to the council internal policy on staff to be made effective January 1st, 2025. Finally, I move that the council rescind the legislative intent concerning council staff approved June 25th, 2024.
We're rescinding the whole thing.
I will second your motion.
Yes.
Can we bifurcate that?
Yeah, but if you'll remember, there's policy, which we're amending, and then there was the legislative intent as well. So it's just amending, it's just rolling back that legislative intent since it no longer applies.
I'd like to bifurcate all of those because I can't remember what the legislative intent was. I'm sorry.
Mitch, do you want to give a little summary of that legislative intent? I don't have it right in front of me, but I can look to pull it up too.
So as I recall, the legislative intent established additional requirements indicating basically it was a statement that the council intended to continue the practice of allowing senior policy advisors to be selected to each office, subject to attendance and other related requirements. That's part of the budget discussion this year. Since the council has taken an alternate path, at least tentatively voted to do so last week, arguably that legislative intent is no longer consistent with the council's direction. And so based on that, it would probably be advisable to rescind it so that there's not contradictory intent from what the council's actually done.
I just realized that this morning.
I was going to say, I kind of assumed that one motion, because it superseded the other, would rescind that. That's not what happened.
It would just, I think, be good to document.
To clarify it.
So let's start with the job descriptions then. And I'll just do the first motion. Are you guys still wanting to bifurcate?
Yes, I would prefer to bifurcate right now.
So let's do the two new council staff job descriptions with the change that I mentioned.
And I had one other change on the
please.
council
Yeah,
office chair position or
the office director.
Office director, thank you. Position. We need to also put in a section in there that they have duties with the executive committee as well.
Oh,
And
that's
that was
right.
not added in there yet, and there's two sections to that. It would help run those meetings, and then they would help with communications and work with the executive
Okay, perfect.
committee,
So we'll add that in as well. Thank you. I forgot about that.
Oh, yes, Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, I'm having a difficulty in terms of communicating audio. Carrie has jimmied the microphone to her phone, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, long story short, this is an important issue for me, and I'd like to be able to weigh in. If you can hear me okay, I'll just leave it as is. If not,
we can hear you.
Could you
so
consider?
Go ahead.
Pardon. Go ahead.
I think there's a delay.
I was
Yep,
just.
go ahead.
Am I getting? I sound
There's
like
a
I'm
little
getting
bit of a
double
delay,
sound.
Jim, so that's what you're
No?
hearing. So go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say if you could break for lunch and start this after lunch and take a short lunch, I could probably resolve my problem. But if not, I may be a nuisance. Just something to consider.
Okay.
I'd like to second his motion to reconvene this after lunch.
Well, thank you.
I have okay. We have a standing motion right now. All right, is that a substitute motion in a second? Would that be considered a substitute motion? Tell me the order for that one for Robert's rules. Well, he was just
You need
asking.
a request.
Basically, Albert turned it into a motion, so.
I'm happy to make it a formal motion, but I thought the prerogative of the chair could also put it after lunch.
I would think so as well.
All right, council, it is up to the prerogative of the council. If you'd like to push this to after lunch, we could come back quickly and start into this.
Is Jim wanting to do it after lunch because then his audio will
Yeah,
be
so he
fixed?
can
Oh,
hear.
that's totally great. I'll withdraw my motion if we want to wait
Okay.
to do that.
So let's plan on doing this right after lunch then. And we'll give you some time to get that figured out, Jim. Does that sound good?
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, then under that, guys, we're going to adjourn for lunch and we'll reconvene back here at 1 o'clock. See you all at 1. I do.
Okay, so Laurie.
Yeah.
So sorry, you had mentioned that to me on the phone.
Yeah. And I thought I sent you an email, but let me make sure I made it out of my